All right, today is July the 20th, 2022, and we continue on this amazing journey that I call Ascension with A Course in Miracles. There is so much happening in the world right now, and it just touches and moves me to no end to recognize that that it's just my journey. Now I know it with all of my mind. I know it in the essence of my beingness. I chose to have this experience. So I get that. But from the depths of my heart, I feel such honor, such humbleness, so touched that this is the role that I get to play. And as every day continues to move along, I feel the human me, or the idea of the human me, dissolving more and more and more, like that caterpillar that dissolves inside of the cocoon. And more and more and more, I feel the essence of my divine self just fully taking over every aspect of my human self. As some of us who study A Course of Love, which is also channeled by Jesus as a follow-up to A Course in Miracles, we know that we are being asked to elevate the self of form. So this physical form is meant to be fully embodied by our divine self. A Course in Miracles helps us understand by creating a foundation of knowledge for us. The Course in Miracles is a mystical and psychological thriller, if you want to call it that. I call it that. And the psychological part is the preparation of the training the mind to understand and know and experience the difference between two thought systems. Those two thought systems are that of God and that of the ego. And they both have very, very, very opposing goals. Now, ego cannot oppose God. Ego can only appear to block God, can only appear to those who allow it to be God. But God is having its way with all of us, because God created us in a place where we are absolutely and completely in a state of oneness. We cannot not be what God created us to be. It's just not possible. But we can be in a dream, in an illusion, pretending to be other than how God wants us to be. Of course, that is the source of all suffering. There is absolutely nothing else but God and the opposing of God, just as there is nothing else but light, and what appears to be dark is a block to the light. We do not have a source of nighttime. There is nothing that sends darkness, inky darkness, blackness into the planet. There is no such thing. There is a turning our back on the sun, turning our back on the light. Our planet rotates, and when it rotates, those are on the opposite side, have turned our back to the sun. It doesn't mean the sun's not there, and it doesn't mean that we don't experience darkness, but it does mean that darkness is the result, and only the result, of the light being blocked. Ego is the result of believing lies, of believing information that tells us we are not the sun. The sun is always there. It is always there. So no matter how much we sit and look at the stars and marvel at the stars, all we're doing is marveling at the light that is being projected on everything that we can only really clearly see in the darkness. So the light is always there. Those planets, those stars are all being illuminated at all times. It's just a matter of, are we blocking the light that is in front of us so that we can see what has been behind us more clearly? Absolutely. The ego is just that. It's a block to the light of truth. So we can see more clearly those things that need to be illuminated inside of our consciousness, so that we can see, oh, that is this, these are my lies, these is my trauma, This is what others have done to me. This is what I've done to others. So in the darkness, we get to see what needs to be seen. But once you realize, okay, I don't need to operate in darkness. We can turn and live our lives fully knowing that the sun is always there, fully knowing that nighttime is just a time to rest this physical vessel, because it's just a resting point. So we can use or train our ego mind to just let us have that experience of separation, and so that we can know each other as other than, but have our mind very well trained to realize that just because I see you as other, as separate, does not need to mean that we are not one. Oneness is a feeling that is felt in the heart. So the Course in Miracles is psychological in training the mind, and mystical. If you do the exercises, if you follow every single step taught in A Course in Miracles through those lessons, by taking the text and really taking in every word that it teaches, by understanding the manual for teachers and realizing that the more that you embody the characteristics of a teacher of God, the more that your heart has opened, allowing you to feel the mystical aspect of A Course in Miracles, because the more that your mind has been trained. When you trust more, you are in doubt less. When you are gentle more, you are aggressive less. When you are generous more, you are in lack less. So we have to train our mind to accept the truth of who we are. Then the heart opens up the more we practice it, by trusting it and embodying it and doing what we are being asked to do, so that we can activate fully the Christ consciousness that is what we each are. So as I continue on this path of more clearly understanding the truth that is taught in A Course in Miracles, more deliberately embodying it, and I've been on this journey for, oh gosh, almost 20 years, and deliberately teaching what I most want to learn, which is how to empower myself with awareness, how to transcend the ego by first understanding it, and how to live from my heart by elevating the self of form more and more and more. I've been teaching now for 17 years, 16, 17 years. And it is the opportunity at this time for those who have made the commitment to live by truth. It is time for us to embody truth. It is time for radical honesty. We must acknowledge that all of us collectively are one. Every being on this planet, past, present, future, it is all one consciousness. While we play the game that there's past, present, future, then we acknowledge that. It's okay. In truth, there is only the now moment, and all is one anyway. So when the mind is comfortable with paradoxes, I'm appearing to be separate, but I know we are one, then love can do what love came here to do. And that is to forgive those who forgot that we are one, to forgive those who know not what they're doing when they are blocking the light. There are no bad people on this planet. That's just not possible, because God created each and every one of us as goodness. And when God created us, it said, behold, this is good. So everybody at their core is a child of God, holy being, divine, just like we are, fully capable of loving just as we are, but also with the free will to block themselves from remembering that. That doesn't make them a bad person. If anything, it makes them quite the adventurer, that they're willing to go to such darkness when it is not necessary. But they can, because God created us free. And we will not free ourselves until we acknowledge everybody is free to do whatever it is that they want to do, because that is what God, in its infinite wisdom, allows us to experience, but never judges a single one of us. It simply waits lovingly, patiently, eternally for anybody who wants to go into the woods to come out of the darkness when they're ready. Just like the story of Hansel and Gretel, every one of us can go into an incarnation and go as deep into the darkness as we want. But we all leave a breadcrumb trail because God knows that we will need some assistance to remember our way back home. Those breadcrumbs are A Course in Miracles. They're the Bhagavad Gita. They're maybe a song by oh, I can't even remember who sings beautiful songs that touch our hearts. The Beatles. So the song Imagine All the People. All of those songs are breadcrumbs. All of the formulas, like Einstein's formula, E = mc squared, energy equals the matter that we see, they're breadcrumbs. And when we are ready to return, we cannot make anybody leave the woods until they're ready to leave the woods. That's not fair because they're powerful creators and they get to leave when they want to. However, to use that Hansel and Gretel analogy, the ego is like the witch that is turning up the heat and trying to cook Hansel and Gretel. The ego is that part of us that becomes hungry for more and more darkness, that it will not stop until it has consumed all that is light, because it feeds off of the innocence of others, because it has forgotten by blocking its own memory of its innocence, of its goodness inside. We cannot leave the witch's situation while we're being lured by the witch into thinking that the candy or the bangles or the whatever it's giving us are so much better for us. And that's what the world has done. We have been conditioned into believing that money and stuff and relationships, and not relationships are of God, but that somebody comes to save us, that somebody else completes us, that something else makes us more special, more important, that we get power by taking it from people, by lying, cheating, by being on the front page of the New York Times, that being a bestseller, that all of those external things give us the illusion of being special. That's all the work of the ego, because it's blocking our awareness that we are already all that. We are the creators of our reality. If we want more of that, all we need to do is make it happen. But we can't make it happen because our mind is conditioned into that somebody else gives it to us. And just as that witch is about to cook Hansel and Gretel, it is not until those children begin to see the pot of water that they're about to be placed in boiling that they begin to realize, okay, something is off here. From the witch luring us in here with candy and making it sound like this was a good thing, like she cared about us, like she was just protecting us from the darkness of the woods. But here we are in deeper darkness, which I'll call evil. It is not until it gets super, super hot in that pot that Hansel and Gretel realize we have got to go. Well, humanity is on the verge of that pot getting so hot that more and more are popping out of the illusion by going, okay, this does not have my best interest. It appeared to at one time. The government seemed to care about us. We thought that that's what it did. When it came up with wonderful things like Social Security and universal health care, we thought, oh my God, they care about us. It's one of us in there doing something for us. But like everything, there are two sides to every coin. Those who worship money and make money their master will eventually not care about anybody else but themselves, because greed sets in, which comes from a very deep place of lack within. This is why it's not for us to judge them. It's for us to call them back into the truth of who they are. Nobody is lacking anything, not one of us. The greediest among us are the most afraid that they don't have enough, are the most disconnected from their ability to generate abundance because they don't know. It's been blocked. Forgive them. They do not know what they are doing. Now we can say, but they're grown people. They should have awareness. Yes, they should have awareness, but they don't. And that's what we are being invited into remembering. Just as we and everybody else went into the darkness like Hansel and Gretel does not mean that we're bad people. It just means that we get lured into the darkness because it's very attractive. It puts all these shiny things out there, and it uses television and movies and magazines to make it seem so amazing. Wow, the people who have all the money, they have the happiest lives. Not necessarily so. So we are being invited to find our way back home, to follow the breadcrumbs, as A Course in Miracles so beautifully teaches us, as so many teachings teach us. And all of the teachings that teach truth, they are required courses. They must be followed. The breadcrumbs are the breadcrumbs, and there is nothing else. Now, the breadcrumbs can be made of lots of different pieces of bread. So each of us is going to follow the bread that sustains our soul. And as we prepare to come more and more into alignment with our true divine self, the mystical experiences just continue to expand and just continue to grow. And I'm telling you, my journey of letting go has been a beautiful, gradual process. I have had the opportunities to lose relationships, lose 2 husbands in the last 20 years. Like, wow. And when I say lose, released from those relationships, to totally see all of the money that I have worked so hard for, my 401ks, my IRAs, my cabin in the woods at one time, and my lake house at another time, my status with the IRS as somebody who was on $1 million tax returns, all of those amazing things that the world had shown me is what was important. Being the top realtor in my field at the time that I was a realtor, being this uber successful in my area, spiritual teacher, all of those things were definitely beautiful, wonderful experiences. And as they were let go of, it was painful. It was uncomfortable. I was cutting what I thought was my lifeline. It's like I was cutting my own umbilical cord from the thing that I thought fed me. And it wasn't until I began to understand that cutting those cords is what freed me from the bondage to the darkness, which meant from the bondage to feeding the part in me that had me believe that turning my back to the light was in my best interest. It is by facing the light, acknowledging my goodness, my godliness, my divine, eternal freedom, that I began to really, truly get that we all choose to have the experiences that we have. There is nothing in our experience that is not absolutely divinely appointed to help us see. Are we in the illusion believing it, or are we stepping away from it? That's all that it's there to do. It's there to help us see where we give our power away. It's there to help us see where we're empowered by cutting the cord to those things that we thought gave us power. And we begin to little by little pull back our power from money, pull back our power from spouses, pull back our power from the boss, from the government, from the medical establishment, from the education system. We begin to pull back our power from the religious institutions. And as we pull back our power, all that we're doing is we're activating more and more self-awareness. We're becoming more and more empowered within, but empowered with the truth of who we are. And once we get to the point that we have cut enough cords and we stand grounded in our own knowingness, that's when we begin to see, wow, everybody else is just doing the same thing. There is not a single bad person out there. They're just all doing what they're supposed to be doing at different stages of their development, their self-awareness, or they're co-creating whatever experiences they need to co-create to take them to the lowest level in consciousness they need to go to before they say enough. I never had to go into deep depressions to have enough. I never had to go into deep addictions to say enough. I never had to go through crazy things to say enough. For me, Enough is when I began to understand the truth. Once I began to see that I was eternal after my mom died, and I faced the potential of my son dying of an overdose. Once I saw death as not having power over me, that was my enough. That was my rock bottom. And from there on, it's been a journey of continuing to choose love over fear over and over and over again. I shift and I lift over and over and over again. And sometimes I shift from one spot to a half a spot, a step up. That's the best that I can do. Sometimes I shift from looking backwards to just standing still in neutral where I am without needing to go any higher. And some days I shift and I lift 2, 3 steps ahead because I've been there, done that enough times. It's like, well, why am I doing this again? And the journey continues and takes us into deeper and deeper alignment with God. The humbleness increases because my God, I didn't do this. I didn't create all of this, but I was created to experience it all. Let me develop a relationship with the Creator. Let me really get to know, I'm going to call it the boss of bosses. Let me really get to know the one that is the author, the one that is in charge, the grand designer, the grand project manager. Let me get to know that one so that I can let go of trying to do it all by myself. And what happens is that source just infuses you with more and more memories of the truth of who we are. We block God. We need to turn to God. We need to begin to remove the obstacles that we have built to the presence of God within. And as we move down this journey more and more, we begin to realize, oh my gosh, there is not a project manager out there. There is not a creator out there. I and that creator are one. And when we begin to realize, one with the creative source that created all of this, what is there that is your creation that you wouldn't love, like you would love a child that you help co-create? And the process of moving deeper into the truth of who we are by accepting it as the truth of who I am, the ability to experience joy, the ability to experience peace just magnifies. And nobody can help you feel that except for you yourself being willing to accept it, which is what's so beautiful about this journey. Lots of teachers, lots of workshops, lots of books point the finger. Early on in the journey, I know I did. We think that the pointer, the one pointing, is the one who arrived and they're the one who we should worship. And we do that as part of the process of learning. And then eventually we realize, oh, I'm actually just as capable as that one. Or sometimes we see, oh, I just leaped in consciousness above that one. Thank you to that one to help us get to where we got. But now it's time to go on to the next thing. And then we find the next teacher. And some of us will leap beyond those teachers, and some students will leap beyond us as teachers. And it's okay. It's not a race. There's not a prize for the first one that gets there. Because in truth, we're all already there. We're just accessing memories of that. And in that place of falling deeper and deeper into the truth, I only want to do God's will. And we've been studying in these Patreon classes. And by the way, thank you so much for being my Patreon members and supporting me, because I'm hearing a very clear calling that it won't be long. I don't know when. Maybe it's another year, maybe it's 2. I will not be teaching big classes and coaching. That I know that that's coming to an end, and workshops and things like that. It's all going to be through this membership program, because I need to reach more people. And when I say I need, is because God has a big message to share through me, and it needs to be as affordably as possible. There can be no excuse for somebody not having $9 to be able to access this, because I still live in the world. So income has to be generated, because I still pay bills, but it needs to be a matter of bigger numbers and much, much smaller contributions in a reciprocal way for me to continue to do what I do, because it's just time for more who are ready to access this from a place of, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars to be able to get this truth. It should be so easily and accessible to all. So thank you for those of you who spread the word and let others know that there's this resource here. But as we've been studying here the last couple of weeks, we study lesson 100. My part is essential in God's plan for salvation, where we understood we are very important to the liberation of humanity. There is just no way around it. And as we know, salvation means that we spare ourselves our suffering. And once you're the one who walked into the woods willingly, you're the one who forgot that you are the creative source. We chose to do that because we know we're safe in the mind of God. At a deep level, we know that. That's what's waking up, is the part of us that knows the truth. And it just wants more and more access to remembering truth as we drop and let go more and more of blocking it. So as the ego goes down, our awareness of truth goes up. It happens in tandem. You cannot do one without the other. It's like a seesaw. It happens in tandem. And as you listen less to the ego, you listen more to the soul. That's how it works. There is no other way. They operate in tandem. So if you're 80% listening to the ego, you listen to God 20%. If you're 75% listening to the ego, you're listening to God 25%. Then you get to 50-50. That's when you feel bipolar and you're going, oh my God, going back and forth. And then there's still a little bit of that when you're at 40 ego and 60 God, you're still a little bipolar. But once you get to the place that you are solidly listening to God, the noise of the ego becomes nothing more than, frankly, like a gnat annoying you. Oh my God, there's that judgmental thought. I'm not going to pay attention to that. And I don't know about you, but when I've got a gnat bothering me, all I do is swat it and it's gone. I have those egoic thoughts. Oh, there you are. Okay. You're wanting some love. I love you, but I don't need your guidance anymore. I'm listening to the voice for God. And little by little, you move to the place where ego is only the awareness that we are in physical form. And then it cannot get you in trouble. Then it is just a recognition. Yeah, I need to have that belief that I'm separate to have the human experience. Thank you very much. That is it. But you transcend it running your life and you accept being in alignment with God's will for us. And our part in helping everybody else remember the truth of who we are is essential. It's absolutely essential to God's plan that we all be happy, because lesson 101 says God wills for us perfect happiness. If God wants us to be happy, why are we listening to a voice that makes us unhappy? If God wills for us happiness, why do we will for ourselves suffering? When we can answer that question with honesty, and we can say, because I enjoyed being greedy, I enjoyed being special, I enjoyed being right. All right, okay. And I also forgive myself for making those things priorities. And when we can be that honest, it was fun. It was fun putting on the costume and pretending I was, this crazy disconnected woman who had to be so righteous. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I got to go to all kinds of events and parties. I got to get all kinds of awards. I got to have all kinds of experiences on this planet. I got to feel righteous and superior and have people who looked up to me. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that role. But then it got boring. Like Groundhog's Day was the same old shit every day. Had to get up and go to work and make more money and pretend that I was, the best, and keep trying and striving and trying to claw my way to the top. It got tiring after a while. And I'm so grateful that it got tiring, because that was my bottom. And then I wanted to know there's got to be another way. And my mom's death became the portal for me to start looking for another way, because my mom's death I stopped. I couldn't function for like a year. I couldn't really work. My head just wasn't straight with all the grief and all the angst about death that I was experiencing. And that sent me inward. And when I went inward 20 years ago, as a matter of fact, August next month, 20 years ago, wow, I went inward and I've never left. I've never left. I just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And when I went inward, let me tell you, I was listening to my ego. I barely could hear the voice for God. It took me just absolutely in terror of death to be able to hear the voice that was saying to me, you know, that's not true. You know, you're not going to go to hell, don't you? You doubted it as a child. And then I began to listen to that voice, and it's been a 20-year journey to shift the balance of who is my master. And the more that I choose to shift the balance and do only the will of God, the more I am being led with light. That means the path gets clearer, the light gets brighter. I see very clearly what is of God and what is blocking God. I see very clearly what is a call for love and what is love being expressed. My intuition is so heightened, nobody can trick me, because I can feel, I've been resensitized to knowing who I am and what everybody else is, which is why there's no need to judge anybody that's doing the things that they're doing that are helping to wake up more. I love the witch that turned up the pot for Hansel and Gretel, because that's how Hansel and Gretel went, whoa, this is getting hot in here. And what if they had not gotten to that place, they would not have left. So today, we go to lesson 102. I was thinking we were going to go somewhere else, but it was very clear. No, we need to continue. The thing that is most important to ingrain in those who are awake or awakening, who are really moving deeper into their journey, we need to understand God's will. And lesson 102 says, I share God's will for happiness for me. You see, the previous lessons said, one, I don't need to suffer. I can save myself from suffering. The next lesson told us that God wants for us happiness. Today is that we need to decide that we want that happiness for ourselves just as much as God wants it for us. And I know those of you who are watching this right now, I know that you guys are parents, and you know how we have wanted for our children more than sometimes our children wanted for themselves. And we knew that there were things that would make their lives easier, but they didn't want to hear what we had to say. You know it. Shake your head so that I know that you get it. Yes, ma'am, I know you know it. And we would love for their path to be easier, but we are all creators of our own reality, and our path is the path that we need to have to bring us to where it is that we remember that it can be easier instead of hard. I just had a conversation with my sweet son, who's going to be, my gosh, I cannot believe he's going to be 28 this year. But we had this beautiful conversation where he realized how difficult he has made life for himself. And he says, Mom, you used to tell me, Tony, you like to learn the hard way, don't you? And he said, I finally got it. And now I'm telling my friends, dude, you're learning the hard way. There's an easier way to learn this lesson. Well, he wouldn't be that wise if he hadn't done what he did to help him understand that. So let's remember, everybody is on their path. Everybody is good because they're godly. There can be no mistake in that. But it doesn't mean that what they're doing is good. Actually, what many are causing to happen on this planet is quite evil. However, we cannot call them into the light by hitting them over the head and pretending that they are bad and acting as if we know better for them. We cannot go into the darkness to help them because we were in the dark and we couldn't help them. Heck, we couldn't help ourselves. We need to stay grounded in the light and call them to the light. So when you see somebody doing something evil or hear about it, read about it, please, in your mind, align with God's will that you be happy. You know that judgment makes you uncomfortable, makes you sad, angry, makes you fearful, makes you tight and tense. There's no joy there. You are putting yourself in suffering. Do what God wills for you and be the one who accepts God's plan for salvation. Find your joy. And your joy needs to be at some level in the journey for you to make that shift from ego to God. You need to begin to enjoy what is happening in the world as an observer. Enjoy being in the audience. Know that you're no longer caught up with the ego voice. You strengthen your ability to hear God's voice the more you begin to enjoy that everything needs to be looked at as a play on a stage or a movie, if you want to look at it that way. Everything that is unfolding before you is the acting out of the different levels of consciousness. And the more you sit back as the observer of it all, the one who is present, aware that everything is an acting out of consciousness, you then sit back, observe it, and recognize, is this a call for love? If it is a call for love, it is up to you to have compassion for where people are on their journey, because you have to, in honesty, we have to, in honesty, acknowledge I'm capable of that. I may not have done that in this lifetime, but it is totally plausible that I've done that in another lifetime, or I could do it in a future lifetime if I don't come back to love. But if I can come back to love, which means starts with one thing: accept it is what is. It is not for me to go change what is. It is for me to accept it. From acceptance, I move to forgiveness. I forgive them. They don't know what they're doing, like I didn't know what I was doing when I was absolutely deluded, going into the darkness, going into the forest. And recognize that God already has forgiven everybody, because God is not in any way or shape or form judging anybody. So if God's not judging and God's the ultimate source of all that is, why would I take it upon myself to judge? And like a parent who eventually recognizes my kids are going to learn how they learn, and my peace comes from, my joy comes from just releasing them, actually releasing my delusion and thinking that I can control things or that I can keep them from, that I can save them. And I come to the place where I'm enjoying, wow, that's just how they want to use their power. From that place of joy, I now am doing God's will, because God wills for more and more of us to sit back as observers, shining our light, living about our happy life, our light that emanates from happiness, from peace, is not normal on this planet for people to be peaceful without having all kinds of stuff, for people to be peaceful without the spotlight on them, for people to be happy without having, all of this stuff that they're managing or owning. The spotlight is now on those who are happy no matter what. Those who are in the darkness need to see that it is possible to be happy, because that is what they are beginning to realize is more important than anything: peace and happiness, freedom. If you're free over here, minding your own business and doing God's will and being happy, that you know that this is all made up. You know that this is all a play in consciousness. If you're not bothered by the darkness, then you have transcended the darkness in you. If you're not bothered by the darkness, meaning you're not angry or upset or judgmental of it, then you are free from the darkness. Now, God can use us in service too. Many of us are being called to be in service in one way or another, whether it's to start a new movement for governance, whether it's starting a new movement for healing and wellness, or for how relationships, how partnerships between two people look like. They are not going to look like they used to before. A new education system. How do we do religion again? How do we honor truths in many paths? Many are being called to be the leaders of the new ways that we are going to be experiencing life, because there's no need to do it the old way. We learned the lesson the hard way. Now we want to continue evolving into mastery of our true nature, the easy way, the fun way, the collaborative, joyful way. You can't hear your calling into how you're going to be in service to co-creating the new earth until you pull back and stop judging the old one. You've got to pull back. For me, in many ways, these last couple of years has been a pulling back from my spiritual box that I was in. I thought that I was spiritual and needed to just talk to spiritual people. Now I'm realizing that was a stepping stone. It's time to move beyond that. Just being spiritual doesn't mean that we walk the talk. Being spiritual knows that we know the talk. But to walk it, you move beyond the box that you were in. You get up and walk out of that box. And in that place, for me, it's really clear that my message goes so beyond the spiritual community. It is about being a spiritual warrior for God. And spiritual because I acknowledge that everything is spirit, and a warrior because I know that I have work to do. And if God is with me, there's nothing against me. Like Martin Luther King Jr., like Gandhi, like Jesus, like Buddha, like so many warriors for God, meaning there's no obstacle that's going to keep us from sharing the truth that set us free. So lesson 102. This is such a profound lesson because we have got to get ourselves to the place where we acknowledge, let me get my little sticky here so I don't lose my place on the page. We need to acknowledge that now that we know God wills for us to be happy, am I doing my part to stay happy? Am I walking the talk of happiness? So it goes on to say, you do not want to suffer. Now we know we shifted. We're at least 51% listening to God, which means we're listening to more truth than we're listening to the lies of the ego. Now we realize, no, I don't want to suffer. That's why I'm shifting and lifting. You may think it buys you something and may still believe a little that it buys you what you want. Oh, working hard for the man and suffering and toiling and 5 days a week and the sweat of my brow is going to give me more money so I have more for retirement. Oh, doing all this hard work is going to help me survive and have and feed myself. If you're still thinking that it needs to be hard, it's okay. As it says in here, you may think it buys you something. You may think that all that hard work is going to get you something because your mind is not fully trusting that our good doesn't come from the outside. Our good is a manifestation of our awareness of who we are and what we deserve. So until we really come closer to God, we don't fully feel deserving of all that is possible for us. So there's a little bit more work to do, but we know we don't want to suffer. That awareness is clear in our mind. We don't have to be convinced that we don't want to suffer. We just still need a little bit more convincing that it can be done the easy way, not the hard way. Yet this belief is surely shaken now that we still want to do it the hard way, at least enough to let you question it and to suspect it really makes no sense. If you are the creator of your reality, why do you create things to suffer with? Hello, we got to walk the talk. This is where the spiritual community for me began to make no sense. People who talk about, I create my own reality, I am one with God, I've got 5 principles that I live by, or some other organizations that said, spoke of the science of the mind, that what I think and I believe in, I can achieve, but yet they're still in separation. They're still choosing one side, one group of people over another. They're defending this side over this one. They say that this one's oppressed by that one, and they want to make it right. You know what? They are where they are in consciousness, and it's not up to me to judge it, but it is up to me to acknowledge that I don't want to do it that way anymore. I don't want to take sides. I don't want to participate in this group against that group, or to say that I create my own reality and then justify that I'm afraid, justify that I need something external to make me healed. That I can't do anymore because I know it's not true. I know I'm lying to myself, but we lie to ourselves until we're ready for the truth of how powerful we are. Because until we accept the truth of our power, we can't use it to do what it needs to do, which God's power is designed to be for the greater good of all. Everything that one who listens to God receives from God is going to be used for the greater good of all. It is only those who block God that use what they receive from God for the greater good of themselves or the greater good of a few. And we're seeing more clearly that that is what's ending. The pot in the kettle, the kettle that the witch is brewing, that she is stirring, that pot of evil is boiling at its boiling point. And it won't be long before we see more who go, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that I've participated in this insanity. Who are they going to turn to? Not the insane, but the peaceful ones. So are you willing to do God's will? That's the question posed in this lesson. I share God's will for happiness for me. So let me read this thing again. Those beliefs of having to do it the hard way, having to do it the old way, should be shaken now. At least enough to let you question them. Is this really the way I want to do it? And to suspect it really makes no sense. Sentence number 4 in paragraph 1. It has not gone as yet, but lacks the roots that once secured it tightly to the dark and hidden secret places of your mind. You see, while we are listening to the ego, we don't realize how dark the ego's thoughts are. We don't realize how we're rooted in this belief system, layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of nonsense. So little by little, we cut the cords, we release the layers, and then we begin to listen more to God. But we still have a little ways to go to drop the ego completely and align only with God's will. But we see through the nonsense. We can see what is not of light. We can see what is not of love, of equality. And that is the work of those who now are seeking to do God's will. You're grounded and you trust truth. Now you trust yourself to break totally free from the ego's nonsense. So if you're the creator of your own reality, why are you worried about money? If you're the creator of your own reality, why are you worried about health? That is where the questions must take us now. That is what we need to see to refine the thinking in our mind, to get really clear that we do not want to operate in the nonsense that tells our mind, oh, I create my own reality, and then deludes us into believing, oh, but I need the government to take care of me, or I need to have this to be safe. We need to be so brutally honest, because it is only through radical honesty that we will question every single belief that keeps her from aligning with God's will. We need to will with God. You need to want it to be fun and easy. So then you need to be willing to question every thought that tells you it's not. Every thought that activates anxiety, fear, worry, concern, jealousy, any thought that activates that. See, the first half of the journey, you're looking at your past. We are grounded into the egoic story from our upbringing and sometimes past lives. So we've got to look at that. Then when we shift and listen more to God, then all we were doing is looking at beliefs that are not true, because you cannot have two masters. And many people, this is what I've seen so much in the spiritual communities, talk love and God and light and all of that stuff, but they don't want to look at their dark side. And the dark side comes from beliefs of superiorness, of inferiorness, of fear, of doubt. If you're not willing to go down and look at those beliefs that you are holding that cause you to feel inferior, superior, or fearful, or doubtful, or anxious, you're not doing God's will. God wills you be happy, totally happy, but you cannot be happy while you're entertaining fear and saying, yeah, see, the world is in fear. There's this bug out there that is coming to kill everybody. And I've got to take that thing that somebody outside of me, some false authority is telling me I'm supposed to take to make me feel better. No, you feel better when you align with God. Do God's will, and then, like Jesus told the leper, you get up and walk. Do God's will, and you're no longer dead like Lazarus. You are fully alive and aligned with God. And right now, the year 2022 is a pivotal year on this journey of awakening, because this year is when the exposure of so much that kept us in the dark, the exposure of so much of the systems that anchored us into greed and corruption and deceit are being exposed. And they're being exposed as within, so without. We've got to see our fears, got to see where we need somebody else to save us. We got to see those fears by looking at the fact that others are not saving us. They're saving their own asses, not ours. But it appears that they're saving ours because they promise us pittances. They give the American people $600 and send 13 billion somewhere else. Where else do they send it? Are you looking? Are you studying it? Are you questioning it? No, you're happy with your $600 for today because you've been so conditioned into settling for so little. So until the mind gets clear that, wait a second, if I create my own reality, why don't I create 13 billion coming to me and 600 going over there? Well, we haven't created that reality because our self-worth has been so beaten down. And we have learned to settle for so little because we don't remember we are all that. We are all of it, one with the creative source itself. So the mind has to be trained into releasing the layers of what blocks us from remembering the truth of who we are as we little by little trust the truth and step into it and embody it more and more and more. Until you really want to embody what God says is yours, happiness, eternal life, liberty, ability to have freedom to do whatever you want, until you want that for yourself and question all of the ways that you don't have it, you are not ready for the goodness that is coming to you because you're not being a good steward of what little you're getting. And this shift is what we are in the middle of right now. Incredible goodness is coming to this planet because there have been many, many, many who broke the barrier of illusion, who are steadfastly doing what they're being told to do. Many of them not even knowing the way that all of this spiritual stuff works. They just follow that guidance, which is another reason why, the spiritual box can create an illusion that we know more about God than we really do. I've watched many people who consider themselves, just agnostic. They didn't really have a real understanding. They didn't put credence out there, but they went inside. They had a deep knowingness that they were here in service. Many Christians, I'm watching many, many Christians operating from a deeper sense of service to God, to the truth, a deeper allegiance to Jesus. So many of my spiritual friends, they don't really talk about God and they don't talk about Jesus because they're too busy in law of attraction. They're too busy. And I create my own reality, but stay away from me, put on a mask because you might get me sick. Even though I've been jabbed and boosted 47,000 times, you might still hurt me. And if you don't mask up, that means you don't love me. What? In the name of spirituality? That's insanity. The invitation is there, but the window to accept it is closing. We are in a transition of realities. Once you understand the way the game plays, this play is about to end. And just like any play on Broadway, some of the performers are going to go on to another performance, and some are going to come back. And in the next opening, the next fall after they take their break, they're going to come back and do that same play again. We all know of actors who have been playing the same role for 37 years. Thank you, Susan Lucci. We know some actors just keep doing the same thing. That's okay. That's where they want to be. But this play of insanity is about to end for those who want to play in a new movie, who want a new role, a role with higher frequency, a role where we're all equal, where we don't have to play with villains and witches and evil people. Oh my, we are about to get an opportunity once in this lifetime. This is it. You can call it the portal. You can call it the timeline split. You can call it whatever you want to call it. You're either going to rise into the truth of who you are, or you are going to stay where you're at. And wherever you're at, that's the role that you are going to play for the rest of this incarnation. Where you're at in consciousness, if you move to a higher frequency, that's the role you will play for the remainder of this incarnation. And these roles are bifurcating because we're not going to be existing in each other's movies. I don't know about you, but there's people of those lower frequencies. Like I said, some of those spiritual communities that I was in, they don't even show up in my experience anymore. Many of them have unfriended me on Facebook, so they don't even show up in my social media experience. We're not vibing in the same place, and I don't go looking for them. They don't come looking for me. At least I don't know that. But I don't go looking for that, which is I'm trying to go pull them out of where they are. I observe and I respect, and good for them. They help me see more clearly what I needed to see for myself to take me to my next level. That's why it says here, the old ways have not gone yet, but they lack the roots. They lack the pull that they once had to secure me tightly in that old frequency, which was still dark and still had secrets within my mind, not theirs, but within my mind. So I don't look to see how I can move people from where they are. I see where they are and ask myself, where am I? Because it's all now about me. I need to be the change I want to see in the world. And where people might have thought, oh, that's selfish. No, it's not selfish. Oh, that's self-centered. No, it is not. I am centered in my higher self. If somebody wants to call that self-centered and selfish, that's okay, because what people think about me is none of my business. It doesn't matter to me. I'm here to be in alignment with God. I'm here to do God's will, not other people's will. I don't even do Laina's will. I only do God's will. Many times my mind says, oh, it would be so much easier if I went and got a job and had those benefits. And bitch, no, I'm not listening to you. I'm very clear. I'm not listening to that part of me that wants me to go back into the old life. I only want to listen to the voice in me that's trying to raise me up. Oh, I think there's a song that says that. I want to be taken to the heights I've never been to before in this incarnation. I want to experience the highest highs without needing to go outside of myself to get a pill or a mushroom or an ayahuasca or something to get it. Not that those things are not wonderful and helpful. I've done that and it's fun. But if I know that I can find the highest highs within, well, number one, it's easier. Number two, doesn't cost me anything. And number three, it anchors me at a higher frequency, which means it makes me closer and closer and closer to accepting that I and the Father, Mother, God and I are one. I want my idea of Laina to dissolve, my idea of the world to dissolve. I only want to know what's in God's mind, because that's the only place where true beauty and abundance and well-being and joy is. I know that. So my work is to release the blocks to that. So simple. Paragraph 2 says, today we try to loose its weakened hold still further. I know my ego's pretty weak. And to realize that pain is purposeless. I don't need to learn from pain anymore. Without a cause and with no power to accomplish anything. I'm watching the world of pain and suffering, and it's not accomplishing a goddamn thing. It's only destroying itself. Nobody's doing better in self-destruction. And yet a lot of people doing it the hard way. That's okay. I've been there, done that. No, thank you. I have another choice. And it's a much more enjoyable choice. Give me more of that. Sentence 2 says, it cannot purchase anything at all. No, the ego cannot buy its way out of hell. The ego cannot pay the controllers enough money to set it free. It can't, because the controllers are not interested in letting anybody free. The controllers are interested in controlling. And once you don't try to negotiate with the devil, then you can outwit it. But we cannot outwit the devil if we don't come to know God. And we cannot do God's will if we don't first come to know that God is a God of love, is a God of peace, is a God of freedom. All that the church told us God was not. Why? Because they had an agenda to block us from knowing the truth of who we are, because it is only the truth that sets us free. And there's only one truth, and that is what God decrees as truth. But you cannot know the truth that God wants for us to know and wills for us to experience until you stop listening to the ego, which is the block to God. Sentence 4 says, and everything you think it offers you is lacking in existence like itself. The ego doesn't give us eternal life. It just gives us, oh yeah, I need $600 so I can get by this month. That's what the ego gives us. Oh, I need a pill, or I need a shot, or I need a this, that, or the other so I can stop suffering this week. And then I need the next booster. And just as we're given little boosts of permission. Oh, you're going to get another Social Security check next month. It's a boost. Oh, you're going to get another shot. It's a boost. Oh, you're going to get, the government's going to give you permission to, keep your ability to shop at whatever grocery store. It's a boost. Why not go to the well of infinite everything? Well, you cannot have that until you face the fears that keep you thinking you can still go to the ego and have any level of joy, happiness, or peace, or health, or security. While we still believe that that gives us something, it's just offering a little booster. But it is not what allows us to have the eternal peace that passes all understanding. Because you got to get out of your mind. That's why it passes all understanding. You can't understand it with your mind. You have to feel it in your heart. And that's why we become resensitized, so you can feel more clearly what is of ego, what is of God. The heart has to be open to feel the feels, acknowledge that they're there, know that they're part of this play, and then decide, I will be free as God wills for me. I will to be happy as God wills for me. What do I need to do to have that, to be part of that new play? Well, you got to unplug from the matrix and then move down the path of not knowing what's coming, but align in frequency with those who are building the unknown, because they know in their heart. We know this is the paradox. We know in their heart what serves the greater good. And it all starts with freedom. We free ourselves from the matrix first. Then in our freedom, we open ourselves up to the unknown, because you trust it. You trust that it's only coming from God. Then it goes on to say, you have been slave to nothing. Be you free today to join the happy will of God. Oh my gosh, are you going to join me in allowing yourself to experience the happiness that comes when you will with God? And God wants you to be free and happy. Why don't you want that too? That was what baffled me for the longest time. I spent so many years going, wow, I settled for so little. It seemed like a lot. Oh, I had millions of dollars. It seemed like a lot. I had a lake house and I had a house and it seemed like a lot. But it was nothing. It was nothing because poof, it went away with somebody deciding they didn't want to play with me anymore. It just went away. This just disappeared. And like, oh, okay. What about what God wills for me that nobody can take away? And it's a certainty. It's a clarity. I now just have to be totally, completely open to receiving the instructions that allows me to have the experience where I have all that I need when I need it, which is really the truest definition of abundance. I don't need for tomorrow. I have what I need today. Tomorrow takes care of itself like the lilies of the valley. And that is how I want to live, because that is true freedom, with no concerns about tomorrow, living fully in this now moment. The next paragraph 3 says, for several days, this is because it's a lesson. For several days, we will continue to devote our periods of practicing to exercises planned to help you reach the happiness God's will has placed in you. Here is your home, and here your safety is. Here is your peace, and here there is no fear. Here is salvation, Here is rest at last. So we have a lesson that's giving us a practice that if we do this over and over and over again, and it could take forever. It could take absolutely forever to get it done. Hold on a second. I'm seeing where I need to plug my computer, or I'm about to lose this transmission. Yes, just as I have to plug myself to the source to gain my power, I have to plug my computer. So as within, so without. Everything is a metaphor. Everything's a mirror. As we practice this practice, along with all the other 364 lessons that comprise the 365 lessons, as we do this, more and more and more, we shift. One practice at a time, we shift until we get anchored in the truth of who we are and we rise above the insanity of the world. Paragraph 4. Begin your practice periods today with this acceptance of God's will for you. We have to say this to ourselves. I share God's will for happiness for me, and I accept it as my function now. So when you are in anxiety, when you are in fear, ask yourself, why am I accepting the ego's will for me? When you are in doubt or jealousy or concern about the future, why are you accepting God's or ego's will for you? This is where honesty comes in. If you're going to trust that God has your best interest at hand, you must stop listening to the ego that has your worst interest at hand. This is where the rubber meets the road. Are you doing God's will and accepting it and wanting it for yourself? Or are you doing the ego's will and continuing to wonder, where's God? Well, God is not going to come and rescue you because God knows you're already free. God is waiting for us to say, I don't want to suffer anymore. I'll take the path of salvation. I'll take the path of accepting my power, turning on my light, acknowledging that I am free. Now, how do I want to use my superpowers? Because every thought that we believe is true. I got to work hard for my money. Somebody else is going to take care of me. Every single one of those thoughts is creating, it's giving power to the experience that is external that has you stuck to it. You need to look at what's out there and say, you have no power over me. You, Social Security, you, government, you, job, you, spouse, you, whatever, you have no power over me. You're here in my experience and I'm enjoying this. Yeah, keep sending me the $600, no problem. But I'm going to spend time talking to God and really hearing what God has to say to me. Because if I'm really listening to what God has to say to me, don't I think that the creator of all can create a path for me? Well, that only comes when I value myself enough to know that I'm worthy of having the path be shown to me, of having something new come to me in a fun and easy way. But that doesn't open up until we accept this with neutrality. Don't judge it. It's not better. It's not saving you. It's not worse. It's not going to hurt you. It cannot do that to you. And as we shake ourselves from the illusion that anything external has power to help or hurt us, we move into a neutral place and begin to hear the guidance that moves us in the direction of what it is that is not only in service to us, but to the greater good. And for many people, their lives, external lives are not going to change, but the internalness is going to be very different. Because one who can be at peace with whatever's coming from the government is one who is not going to be in fear when that government implodes, and it is on its way to imploding because it is not of God. It is a block to God because it is of greed and service to the self of those who are the majority, not all, the majority who are doing that. And there's no person, no magic thing who's going to come and save anybody. There is only those who are listening to God, who are co-creating something better. Are you participating in that? At the very least, through your trust that that is being created, because there are millions on this planet who are in service to the greater good. Trusting that that is being created while at the same time receiving what you're receiving of what is in neutral, you are contributing to the co-creation of the new because you're expecting something better. And that expectation of something better is a sign of worth. I am worthy of something better. I'm not going to judge this. I'm not going to spend time judging it. I'm aware of it, and I'm going to keep looking at it because I know it's there. So I'm going to just watch it, send it love, but I'm also observing what's happening over here. And I know it's for the greater good of all. And I'm going to serve and I'm going to help. And if I can volunteer, if I can send $5, if I can do something that says, yes, I trust that this is of God, then you can observe the two and know what's happening. There is a shift in consciousness. There are more now that are doing God's will than are doing the ego's will. So you begin your practice, paragraph 4, you begin your practice today with the acceptance of God's will for you. It's a statement. I share God's will for happiness for me, and I accept it as my function now. I accept that I deserve to have it be fun and easy. I accept that I deserve to have grace. I accept that I deserve, as a child of God, for my desires to become fulfilled. But in a world of time, it's going to appear to take a little bit of time. But if you accept the truth now, you just need to be happy now and now and now. And if you spend the next 4 or 5 years of now moments knowing that you deserve better and focusing on sending your conscious prayers to those who are co-creating, if you don't feel that you're able to go do, but you can do by knowing that that is being created, and stop fearing or stop needing something external to rescue you. Let what is breaking down break down. Has to. We need to let go of what doesn't serve us. I think last week we called that like the training bikes, the training wheels on a bike. You let them go. Today, we accept God's will for us. I'm going to read it word by word. I share God's will for happiness for me. My happiness only comes if I accept that God created me for happiness. And I accept it as my function now. That's all I need to do. I just need to get happy and stay happy. And when I slip out, forgive myself for forgetting that happiness is my function and come back, shift and lift right back into it. Paragraph still 4, sentence 3, then seek this function deep within your mind, for it is there, awaiting but your choice. Happiness is a choice to accept that you are okay because you're in God's mind. You cannot fail to find it when you learn it is your choice and that you share God's will. I want what God wants for me. If it wants happiness and joy and peace and abundance and well-being, I want that. It's like that old movie, When Harry Met Sally. I'll have what he's having. I hope you're willing to have what Jesus is telling us in A Course in Miracles is ours. I'm going to have what Jesus is having. And I'm not settling for any less. And I'm going to lie to myself and pretend that there's anything other than this as the truth for me. I'm done with pretenses. I only want what's true now. Paragraph 5, the final paragraph. So be happy, for your only function here is happiness. Whew, what a relief. All I need to do is be happy. That's it. What a relief. You mean I don't have to work hard for happiness? I don't have to toil and sweat and suffer for happiness? Well, I can if I want to, but I don't have to. I'm so happy that happiness is my purpose. How exciting is that? You have no need to be less loving to God's Son than he whose love created him as loving as himself. We do not have to be judgmental, hateful to any one of God's children, especially not to us. We don't have to judge those people who did those horrible things out there. We don't need to do that. God created them free. And if they're suffering, and I assure you, they're suffering, they're the most scared people on the planet, are the ones who are trying to control all the people who now don't want to be controlled. they're scared. They're shaking in their boots because we're onto the game, the lie that they're living inside of. That deserves compassion. That deserves our love. I love you, brother, sister, for helping us see that we too believe that nonsense. Thank you for you taking that role and letting me take this role that now lets me stand over here. And all I need to do now is just be happy. And that helps the planet. Because my lack of judgment, feeding the lie, allows me to sit in my happiness, feeding the new earth. Because if I'm happy and peaceful and know God's will for me, then I want that for everybody else. Because I cannot be operating in love and light and be all, 5 unity principles if I'm not walking the talk. If I create my own reality, I'm going to create a reality of well-being. Doesn't mean that if I go to the doctor or go to the dentist or go, to the government, if I'm hearing that that's what I need to do, I can still do that with peace in my heart, but I don't need you to do it. And that's the difference between those who are operating in God's will. They know that they're working with themselves. It's an inside job. We don't fear those who don't do or what we do or do what we don't do. The outside is irrelevant when you have shifted to trusting God. The outside is just a mirror informing you of where you're at. And if you think you create your reality and you're trying to control those outside of you, you do not walk the talk. You may know it, but you're not walking it. This radical honesty is important right now. And then he goes on to say, so besides these hourly 5-minute rests, pause frequently today to tell yourself that you have now accepted happiness as your one function. And be sure that you are joining with God's will in doing this. If you don't let this be simple, you cannot move out of the complexity of the insanity of the world that the ego has created. The ego has created a maze of red tape, blocks, and hurdles. You got to jump through this hoop and that hoop. As within, so without, it's the same thing. If you want to get a permit to build a house, all the hoops that you have to jump through and the people you got to pay off and the things you got to do and the this and that, all of that is the same thing that happens inside. Our ego has us convinced we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to join this community, we got to, we got to wear this crystal, we need to wear this color, we need to chant this mantra, we got to do this, we got to do that. And then we arrive. It's not true. There is no arriving at what you are. There's just accepting it as the truth. Once you know it in your head, you must begin to feel it in your heart. And you cannot feel it in your heart until you radically commit to the truth that sets you free. Question every thought that disturbs your peace, because those are the lies the ego wants to tell you. Those are the ways the witch is going to keep you in its brew. If you don't want to be eaten up by the ego and continue to experience suffering, then get out of the pot. And you will do it if you acknowledge that only you keep you in that hot pot. It is up to you to accept your one function. Happiness. Real happiness, not external pleasure. And once you know that happiness, peace, joy, they all go together, then you'll know the way out. Thank you so much for being with me today. This is just totally, this transmission has just, it feels so freaking good when these beautiful truths just flow. And thank you, because we're 2 or more gathered, here we are. Beautiful things can happen. Did you get, Kat, I know you got a whole bunch of nuggets because you're always receiving things, but share any one thing that jumped out at you today. I love to hear that.
Well, again, it's it's this beautiful reminder that happiness is, that's the answer. So happiness can't get there without letting go of so much crap that we've been fed all these years, and have to be vigilant for it, because the ego sneaks up on you with, you think, oh, this is a spiritual thing, but yet you have to really sometimes really evaluate it. So I love when you say question every belief that creates anxiety or fear or all that. So that's the big thing, just to stop and go into the stillness. And so I these are always such beautiful connections to source, these calls and the experience with the groups. And so I'm just very deeply grateful. I'm very grateful for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And here's the other message. Absolutely what I needed to hear today. I'm so glad that this was what you needed to hear today is what I needed to hear today. So I am grateful that we get to come together and do this. And, you know, it's share with anyone who might feel that they could benefit from messages like these, and let's build a community. I know it's my purpose is to build the community this way. This is really, really empowering and just feeds my heart. So thank you so much for being here. And Friday, 3 o'clock, I'm going to open it back up. So I will post the link. It's going to be the same link as we used last time. So I will send it back out, text it to those of you who are members of this Patreon group, and then I'll put it in the Patreon link again, so that if you have time, come pop in at 3 o'clock. And if, like some of you did last week, you popped in kind of towards the end, we were still here, but it won't be more than an hour, because I do have a 4 o'clock commitments on Fridays. But from 3 on, we'll just bring questions, bring whatever, and let's sort things out. Let's put it into practice. Thank you all so much for being here. I love you all so much, and thank you for doing God's will with me. Together we rise and co-create this new earth. So you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too, sweetheart.
Much love.
Mm.
You.
Bye-bye.
Bye.